Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Decryption and I hope you are well. In today's tutorial we're going to be looking at 5 common tasks your game and probably most games will have in narrative. So let's get started. First example, you can see I have this little blueprint here that when you run up to it just starts a quest. And when I start it, if I run up to it, you can see it will start a quest and it'll say go to the garage. Perfect. And I know I need to go to the garage. Well, I'm here, but it's not triggering anything. So I'm walking around, it's not triggering anything. And boom, okay, I'm outside of the garage, this triggered it. That's a bit weird. If I was to change it to go into the garage and then try it again, we know that that logic won't let us do that. We can walk outside. There's nothing specifically telling us to go inside. I could set the vector coordinates to the exact door. I could make it smaller so you have to walk into it. But if there's multiple places, then it gets like multiple entries to it. Maybe I can run up to the garage door over here to open it, then that's not going to work because of the doors over there. Or maybe I have to go up on the roof and there's a secret hatch. There's plenty of instances where a vector-based go-to-location won't work. So see, I even stepped to the garage and it didn't trigger it till I got a bit closer. So this is where my first task is going to come in, and it's going to be the go-to-location trigger. So narrative by default has a go-to-location task built in, but it's vector-based, and this does work for a lot of scenarios. If you have to find the entrance to a cave, a go-to-location node with a vector might work. Or maybe you have to just get in the vicinity of a city. This might work. It'll work a lot better than having to place loads of triggers around the city. However, in some instances, such as maybe dungeon crawlers, or in my game, where I need to specifically get to specific points, this is not going to work, at least very well. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to come into my blueprints, and I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm just going to call it narrative blueprints. And inside here, I'm going to create a new actor class, and I'm going to call it BPA go to location trigger. Now, the reason we're calling it BPA is because BPA will be abstract. It means we can't drag this actor into the world. So if I go to class settings and tick abstract class here, if I click compile and save, you'll notice I can no longer drag this actor into the world. It won't do anything, and that's because we've made it abstract. This means we're going to create children of this blueprint shortly. So the first thing I'm going to do in here is I'm going to come and create a new event here called start trigger. And from here, I'm going to drag off, and just under this, I'm going to right click and do get narrative component, and I'm going to drag off and do complete narrative data task. I'm going to plug it in. Now it's going to ask us for an argument and a task. So I'm just going to promote the argument to a variable like so, and I will call it location name. And I'm going to make sure the eyeball is visible, and I'm going to click compile. For the task, we actually need to come and create a new data task. So I'm going to come back to my blueprints folder, and inside my data tasks, I'm going to right click narrative data task, and I'll call it DT go to location trigger. And then I'll open it up and I'll just get rid of all the details, and I'll call it location name. There we go. And for the task category, I will call it location, just so it's all nicely organized in narrative. And then I can come back and set this task to the go to location trigger. After this, I'm just going to make sure that it has indeed updated a quest. This is useful for in case there's a glitch or if narrative is multiplayer based. And then I will just simply destroy the actor like so. Now you might be asking, well, that's all good, but we can't drag it into world. And you are correct, but this is where we come and now make a child of this narrative blueprint. So I'm going to right click this and I'm actually going to do create child blueprint class. And in here, I will call it BP underscore go to location trigger, and I'll do underscore cube. So this is going to be the cube version. And now I'm going to open this up and you'll see we've got all the normal stuff. It just looks like a normal blueprint, but we don't actually need any of the events. Instead, I'm going to come in and add a box collision like so. Now we can set this to whatever size we want. I typically come and set it to something roughly resembling a door because the majority of the time I use this is to resemble a door. And then on this box, I'm going to scroll down and I'm just going to come and click the on component begin overlap. From the other actor, I'm just going to check if it's my first person character. You can cast to whatever your player is. And then from here, if it's cast successful, then we can just drag off and do start trigger, which is basically going to, as you can see in the description, go back to BPA go to location trigger, which this is this one here, and it will trigger the trigger, which will come back here, complete the narrative data task, and destroy the actor. And with this one, since it's a child of it, it's not abstract, it means we can come in and we can drag in the cube like so. So I could specifically choose to place it right here, just inside the doorway, or even if I didn't want it this specific, if we've got multiple locations you could actually arrive in, I could come in and expand it out so it fills the entire room, a little like that. So now you can see if you come into the doorway, it'll trigger it. If you come into the garage, it will trigger it. If you come on the roof, and drop down, it will trigger it. I could even lift it up some more if I really wanted to, but that is good for me. In the location name, I can just come in and type what location I want it to be, so I will type garage. And then back in my quest now, I can actually come off and delete this vector-based one, and instead I'm going to drag off, and in our new, I can actually drag off and do complete narrative data task, which is how we'll pick up our new task. The data task we're looking to complete is going to be our go to location trigger, and the argument is going to be garage. And the description, I'll just say go into the garage. Now we can compile and save. And simply with that, ladies and gentlemen, that minor change to that blueprint, it means now when we run up to the trigger here and it says go into the garage, so we can run up and we can walk into the garage and nothing will happen. We can walk around, we can hit the door, nothing's going to trigger it because the quest says we must go into the garage. So you see, as soon as we walk in, the quest is completed. And there you go. One question you might be asking is, why did we go through all the tedious process of creating the child blueprint? And this is purely because then I can come back to this abstract one here, create another child blueprint, or in this case, I'm just going to duplicate the cube. And this time I will call it sphere, or any other shape you want. You can now come in and create any shaped collision you want, and narrative will complete it. If I come here and create a sphere collision, and I'll just scale it up a little bit, and then I will come and add on component begin overlap. Then I can delete the box off, I can drag this up, and it will function the exact same. Just make sure you connect your other actor into the object. So if I didn't want, for say, that the garage to be a cube, which I do, but I'm going to delete it for now, I can come and drag in the sphere. You can see it'll sit there nicely. I can come off it and I can just drag it a little bit. And the quest might, instead of say go into the garage, might say go up to the garage. And now I can compile and save. And you might be looking at the sphere and think, well, wouldn't the vector do this? Yes, absolutely. The vector would also work in this position, but the sphere is just a basic example. So it'll say go up to the garage, I can walk up to it, and it'll say, so you can see I'll walk into it and it'll say go up to the garage, I can walk up into the vicinity and it will complete stuff just. Another benefit of having this is you can visualize it a lot easier than the vector one. If you put a distance of 500, what does that mean? Where is it? You don't know. But whereas this, you can place exactly how you like. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the first common task. The next task we're going to look at is the pick up item task. Now, there is not going to be very many games where your character doesn't run up and pick an item up. Every game I can think, from Saints Row to Grand Theft Auto, Mario Kart, they all have pick up item tasks. They all have some type of pick up item or item that can be picked up. So I have my quest start here and all it says is pick up the tire, and it's got a new narrative waypoint on it. When I run up to it, it destroys the object and picks up the tire. It's that simple, and it's a really easy quest to create. So this is actually a narrative blueprint task. So I'm going to come into my task folder and you can see I have my pickup item here. And this task here has quite a bit of code to it, but it's really easy when you break it down. So the first thing it does when it comes in is on the begin task function, which runs as soon as this branch is received in narrative, and it will cache the narrative UI. And the reason it does this is so we can add the waypoint functionality later. Next we come across and I've got a variable of item tag. So if I come back to my branch here, you can see I have an item tag and it's just tire. For my actual object, all this is a literal tag of tire, because narrative works best with tags. You can of course use anything you want. After this, it gets the first item, because in my case I only want one item, but you could easily turn it to a for loop. And then I set the item so I can remember it and use it later. Then I bind to the item's picked up event here. If I come back to my item and open it up, and open up the parent, just like we did before, I have an abstract version. You can see when I overlap the box, I check if it's my player, and then I call the picked up event here, which is an event dispatcher. All I did was click the plus, tap picked up, drag it in here and click call. That's all you need to do. And then I check if there's any dialogue available to play, because some of my items you play dialogue, and then you destroy it. That's all it does. So really simple. So I bind to that event, and when that event is triggered, it comes to this custom event here and calls add progress in narrative, which updates the narrative quest to say I have picked up this item. I then have this optional piece here. You don't need to do this, I did it for my sake. Is currently you cannot tell via script if a narrative blueprint task has been completed. So for every blueprint task, I just complete a loose task with the exact quality of tires picked up or something. So I can query if they've picked everything up. The only other thing it does after this event has been bound is it comes straight here and checks if it needs to add a waypoint. If it does, it calls add waypoint, just like that. So the final thing I do down here is I have 2 events, on task completed and end task. On task completed basically only runs when you successfully complete the task. You've met all of the requirements, you've picked up all the items. On end task will run whether you fail the quest or not. So you need to do both, so you can make sure you clear everything up. Then if I'm adding a waypoint, I remove the waypoint, and then I simply re-loop over all my items and I unbind the event from here. It's important you unbind the event, because if there are any items left over in the world, like if I were to do like so, and I pick up one and it marks the task as complete, if you pick the other one up, there's a chance that you might get an error, because it'll try to tell narrative because we've bound to it, but it doesn't exist anymore. So it's just safe to unbind from it. And that is pretty much it for this task. It seems complicated, but when you boil it down, a lot of it is really, really simple. The only other thing to support the waypoints you have to do is you have to implement the BPI waypoint task, and then you'll just get a couple of interfaces called get task location, which is the world location you need it to do, which I've just simply got my item, got the box, and got the location. And then the name, which I've simply just put the item name. So if I run up and start the quest, all it is to handle the waypoints there. As you can see, I don't need it. You could get rid of the waypoint task if you don't want it. And if I run up, it completes it. And because of that unbind, running into this causes no issues. Nice and simple. The next task we're going to look at is the Kill NPC task. Now this is a highly common task in a lot of games, Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead Redemption, all sorts, where you get targeted a specific NPC and you have to say, take them out. So in this case, I don't have guns or stuff set up in my game just yet, but poor little Glenn here, we're going to kill him off. So I'm going to open him up, and if you already have your damage system plugged in, you're already halfway there. So I'm just going to come into here, and all characters in Unreal have some events set up already for damage. So if I do event damage, you can see we have 3 damages here. So I'm just going to click on the any damage one here. And this is an event built into Unreal that basically tells us whether or not this actor is taking damage, or something is saying, make this character take damage. So I'm just going to drag off here and I'm going to say, if this actor takes damage, I'm just going to simply come and just destroy it. Just nice and simple. You could have your ragdoll effects, your blood, your screams, anything you want, your health. That's all something you can work on, but for the basics, I'm just going to kill the actor like so. So in order for us to pick up that this actor has died in narrative, it's really simple. And we're going to come down to the event dispatchers here. Now I know there's a lot of confusion around event dispatchers, but you also might hear them be called delegates. And all it is a type of variable where you can add function calls to it. And when we tell that a variable to call itself, all those functions that have been added to it will all be called. So for example, let's run through a really basic one. So if I had an event dispatcher here called on death, this is our variable called on death. So if we drag it into this any damage here and do call, you'll see it will call itself like so. We can plug it in. If we were to run the game now and call some damage to Glenn, nothing would happen because we've not bound anything to it. So I'm going to compile and save, and let's make a way so we can actually kill Glenn here. So I'm going to come in and go to Unreal's pain causing volume here. So I'll just drag this in. Then I'll make sure to say damage per second. I will set to, it can just stay as 1. And the pain interval will be every 10 seconds he will receive pain. So if I were to try my game now, run up to him, after 10 seconds, the pain causing volume will deal him pain. Now in a realistic world, you probably wouldn't set the pain volume to 10 seconds. It's a bit weird, but you can see Glenn has just died. Rest in peace, Glenn. So how do we put Glenn's sacrifice for our noble cause to good use? Let's plug him into a task so we can actually be told, then we can blame somebody else. So we already have our custom event dispatcher on here. And as I said, it's just a list of functions, but at the moment there's no functions in it. So all it does is say call, I've got no functions, carry on. So let's add a function to it. So I'm going to come into my narrative tasks folder here, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to create a new narrative task called any Kill NPC. And I'm going to open it up. First thing I'm going to do for good practice, I'm just going to come into the class settings. In the blueprint display name, I will call it Kill NPC. The description, I will set it to this task is used to kill a named NPC. And in the category, I will just call it NPC. So it's all linked up. Now I'm going to come into my override function and I'm going to override the begin task function here. I'm going to drag off and I'm just going to do get all actors of class with tag. Now I know in my case, every single NPC I want to kill all inherit from character or BP NPC. Now BP NPC has my custom custom event on it, character doesn't, I'm going to cast it to BP NPC. But every single one of all my NPCs all inherit from this BP NPC class here. So I'm just going to come in and say BP NPC, like so. The tag I'm going to promote to a variable, and we will eventually set this to Glenn, whatever his name is. From the out actors, I'm going to do a for each loop, because this is not just used for killing a single NPC. You could say kill the raiders. And if you have 5 raiders, put them all with a tag of raider, and you could loop over every single one of them and kill them all. And then from here, I'm going to do bind on death. And you can see we can now see our event dispatcher. So I'm going to click bind event on death. And now it wants us to create an event, which is what we can do. But an easier shortcut is to actually type assign on death. And all the difference is it just creates the event for you like so. Just a nice little shortcut so you don't have to do it. If you didn't have this, all you do is drag off from event and do add custom event, and it will do the exact same thing. It's just a nice quick thing. So when the character dies, all we're going to do is drag off, and I'm going to do add progress. And that's it. That's all you need to do. For the cleanup, just as I mentioned earlier, we do need to override the on task completed and the end task, like so. And then we just need to loop back over all these actors again. And you might be thinking, wouldn't it be better to cache these actors? And it's a debate you can have. I think no, because if you cache 100 NPCs, then that's 100 NPCs worth of memory you're now having to save. Whereas if you just loop over it once at the beginning and then once at the end, it's only a very small amount it's going to have to do. And from here, all I'm going to do from here is just to unbind event from on death. And all it wants to do is tell us which event does it need to remove. Now I'm going to plug it up to here just like that. When we come into bind event, this adds this function to the list of the event dispatcher calls here. So once this code here is run, the event dispatcher here will have one function in its list. When it gets called, it will tell that function this person has died, and that will come into this function here and say run you, and it'll be like, okay, add progress. And then when we finish the task, so say we kill 1 person or we kill 5, whatever, it will loop back over those actors and say remove this event from your list, this one here, nice and clean. So if I compile and save now, that should be all we need to do. So if I come back to my quest here, drag off, I will have a new, and I can do kill NPC. Now I'm going to come up to Glenn and I'll click him. And I'll say, what's your tag, Glenn? Let's have a look. So he doesn't have a tag at the moment, so I'm going to give him a tag of Glenn. And I'm going to come back to Quest Blueprint here, and the tag we need to give it is Glenn. And that's all we need to do. I could be nice and I could add a task description. So let's just go kill, wait for Glenn to die. If I compile and save now, if I quickly run up to the starter before 10 seconds when Glenn dies, we'll see it says wait for Glenn to die. And if we watch Glenn, goodbye Glenn. There we go. And the task has been completed, ladies and gentlemen. We have now successfully got a kill NPC task. And this really can work for as many as you want. So if I drag Glenn out here and drag his pain causing volume over here, and this time I'm going to set this pain causing volume to be 15, so it happens 5 seconds after the other one. Now we've got 2 NPCs with the tag of Glenn. If I come back to my task here and set the quantity to 2 and compile and save, I have the 2 Glens who die. I'm going to run up and complete my task before he dies. So it'll say wait for Glenn to die. So you can see we've got 2 Glens. The first Glenn is now gone and we've completed task 1 of 2. Second Glenn will be gone. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. Killing an NPC. Such a simple task to set up, but a vital task nevertheless. The next task we're going to look at, ladies and gentlemen, is slightly different to what we've currently been doing because it's not actually progression for us. It's more of a failure point. So you can see if I run into my quest here, it says go to the garage. So what happens if I don't go into the garage and instead I die? Say if I go into combat and I fail or something. So if I run down here, I have a pain causing volume in here for my player that kills my player. So if I run in, it'll say you died, and you'll see the quest has now failed. But how did it know I have died? And this is a new part of narrative that has been added recently in the 3.1 update, where we can now add states to jump to when things happen. So in my quest here, you can see my parent class is the master quest, which I use on all quests. So I'll just jump into here. And you can see here, I have an on-death event on my player, exactly how we did on the NPC. So if I come into here and go first person character, which is my player, you can see if I look around here, right on this big red one on here, I have on death. Granted, mine is more populated than the other one, but it's really, really simple. All it does is come in, check my health and minus it off if I need to, update the on-screen UI, so you take damage. If I am dead because my health is 0, then I disable the input. I play that ominous ambience music, which is from an asset pack I bought a while ago. Then I call my on-death event here, my event dispatcher or delegate. And then I show the death screen, fade the camera away, wait for a bit, and then hide narrative UI, and then jump to the new level. And that is the exact same as the Kill NPC. The only difference is I'm not using it as a task, because any quest I have, if you die, you fail. End of story. There's no quest in my game, just like Grand Theft Auto, Saints Row, Red Dead Redemption, where dying is the objective. Some games, like Super Meat Boy, absolutely dying is a key part of it, but not in this game. So all I've done is overridden narrative's event on quest started by clicking here and on the quest started. Then I check for my player. Then I cast my player and I bind on death. When they die, I use the new enter state function on narrative here. And what this does is basically tell narrative, jump to this state in the quest. Go to it straight away. And then I just use the get state and just to tell it which. And all this does is when I die, is tell narrative to jump to a state called player died. But if I come into a quest graph, I don't have that state. And it's not on my current quest either, so how does it work? And this is the new feature. If I go into class defaults, you can see I have an inheritable states. And this is something you want every single quest to have. And in my case, I have a new quest state called player died state. And then the description of it is you have died. And then the show type is failure because it is a failure state. I can add conditions and events to it just like I want, but all this event graph here is doing is saying go to this state here. I can also come in and just add a new state here, and then I can call this player died and jump to this one as well. For me, I know every quest needs it, so I've added it to inheritable states. And then finally, on quest succeeded or failed, not end this time, just failed, I cast my player again and then I unbind the event from it because the quest is now failed when it enters this state, unbind from it so it doesn't cause any issues later. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how we take a normal task that we would do, such as the player dying, but then we have changed it around to actually tell the narrative when the player fails instead. So it doesn't tell me I need to do that because it's a hidden away thing, but instead I can come down here, when I die, you will see narrative will pop up and say, you failed, you're dead. How cool is that? The final task we're going to look at is a rather complicated one, and I do have a dedicated tutorial for it here, and I'll add the link to the description as well, but I'll run through it really basically, and it's the Follow NPC task. You have it in so many games, from Need for Speed, GTA, Red Dead, Rayman, all sorts have these type of quests, where the prime objective is to walk up to the NPC and follow them. That is it. So if I come to my quest log, if I open up my quest, I have the meet quest here, and you go and talk to a bunch of people, then it says talk to Lily, and then this one comes in and it begins a quest that I call a subquest, called the Meet Lily Follow. And the reason we separate it off to a separate task is to make it a lot easier to handle. And you can see all it does is tells her to set her movement state to walking, and then it says begin dialogue, and it's got a Follow NPC task here which tells her to go to this location. If I go and have a look at this task called Follow NPC, this again is fairly chunky, but it's really easy. All it does is loop over the NPC, get the first one and cache it so we can use it, then it gets her AI controller, or the NPC's AI controller, and tells it to go to a location. And that's Unreal's basic A-star algorithm walking thing. All it does is check the NPC's distance away from the destination that we've set. If the NPC has arrived, then it completes the task off. So here, go to the bikers, the next one, go to Tyler, next, and then blah blah blah, it will carry on. And then all I have at the end is this complete narrative data task here, where I have set the follow task subquest as being complete, which tells it to go back up to the quest here, and where it says follow Lily, that is the subtask I've created, and it calls quest succeeded. And if I get too far away, then it'll just fail the quest. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. It's really, really easy to do, and it's a vital part of adding just a really nice experience to your game. So if I run through my quest and talk to all the people, including the Nakamura sisters, you will see Lily will then walk up to me because that's what the task tells it to do. She'll talk to me, and now the follow quest has begun. She's walking over. There we go. How cool is that, ladies and gentlemen? And that is my 5 very common narrative tasks. There may be some instances where you don't need 1 or 2 of them, but I can't think of a game where you don't have at least a couple of them. Do you have any more tasks that are so common in games that you think should be added? Please let me know in the comments below, and we'll create a new video later. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. My name is Decryption, and I will see you next.